On July 25th, 2013, Game of War Fire Age entered the scene. Machine Zone was still in its infancy, but they were already on their way to change the lives of people around the world in ways that nobody would expect. One of Machine Zone's founders and the original CEO, Gabe Layden, got into gaming at Atari in Milpitas, California in 1999. He then worked in the coin-op industry for 8 years before getting into the free-to-play industry in 2007. The first notable impact that his company had happened in January of 2009, when iMob was the first free-to-play game on the iOS App Store under the company name Admired. It was changed to Machine Zone in 2012 when focus was shifted to making strategy games for smartphone devices. Most people today know what a free-to-play game is. It's a game that is available to download and even play for free. But that doesn't mean that doing so doesn't come at a cost. Free-to-play games are most often free with a catch. By using tactics such as anchoring, which is showing the user a package or pack with an absurd cost of $99.99, the initial reaction for most people is a kind of disgust. Most people will not buy this, but over time, developers may start to show similar packs at cheaper and cheaper price points, trying to convince the player that $4.99 is a good deal. Most people will probably never make any in-app purchases, but those who do often end up falling into a vicious cycle that continues, and they continue to spend week after week, often increasing in the amount that they spend. Regarding the creation of Game of War and Mobile Strike, Gabe Layden also implied that players themselves were actually the true content of the games, even referring to the games as, quote, essentially a highly structured chat room. Using technology that incorporated Google and Microsoft's translation services and machine learning, players could easily communicate with people from other areas of the world in real time. In 2015, MZ released a reskinned version of Game of War as Mobile Strike, which was also a massive success, finding its own place on the top-grossing charts. But MZ's innovations didn't stop at just changing the mobile landscape. MZ created what they called the RT platform. In 2016, their real-time messaging technology was actually used as the foundation for an ambitious project to run New Zealand's entire transportation system. With this new technology, citizens could query to find out when they should leave to get to work on time, or to see which buses would get them to their destination the quickest. Moreover, it improved the efficiency of the system, allowing the government to track where any bus is at any given time with the approximate number of passengers even. In 2017, MZ and Square Enix agreed to allow the use of the Final Fantasy XV IP to create yet another game using the same kind of mechanics and technology. Thus was born Final Fantasy XV: A New Empire. But things didn't go quite as expected. In an interview done in 2015, well before the Final Fantasy collaboration happened, Gabe Layden was told some people on the outside felt like MZ was overly dependent on just one game, to which he responded, quote, "It depends on the observer. But I would say, looking at other video game companies, that I don't think the multi-title strategy is going to last. That was our bet in 2011. The market is too competitive. The process of creating an app, running an app, and marketing an app is too complicated to do for 5 games a year, especially if you want to grow a game to a very large scale. I don't think it's possible to do 5 games a year. I'm not even sure it's possible to do 2. This came to reality in 2017 with their third game when the revenue came in slower. Despite the use of the Final Fantasy IP, MZ increased their marketing spend on their new game, and as a result, Game of War and Mobile Strike both started to slip in the charts. It was around this time when MZ started to lose their momentum and focus. Although MZ was a private company and did not disclose sales figures, Final Fantasy XV seemed to become their new biggest hit. This was short-lived, however, as around 2 years into its life, the boosts in the game got overinflated, and the whales, the spenders who willingly drop hundreds or even thousands of dollars in a week, felt underappreciated. The game was riddled with bugs, and with new releases becoming increasingly irrelevant each day. The only way that the developers would be able to resolve the issues that players reported day in and day out would have been for you to hit the like button, as it will help the stars align to grant MZ's support team omniscient powers to make everything good in the world once more. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, or a lot. Despite the initial troubles with bringing in revenue with their third heavily marketed title, Machine Zone had plans for yet another reskinned game. On October 24th, 2018, World War Rising was published under Mobile War LLC, following Machine Zone's trend of filing each new game under a new LLC or limited liability corporation. This game was not as broadly marketed as previous releases, and as a result, it mostly drew in already existing players from their other titles. Their marketing efforts did reach some new players as well, however, and the player base grew to a decent size as a result. No celebrity was hired to promote this game, unlike previous ones. Instead, ads were strategically placed in other free-to-play games in their advertisements, where players were promised free items or currency in the game they were already playing as a reward if they could meet certain goals, such as reaching level 12 in World War Rising. Due to the difficulty in early game to do this, many tried out the new game and attempted to reach the goal set with no intention of playing past their objective. However, many players became entangled and formed the primary player base that did not come from a game previously released by Machine Zone. I actually, myself, spent some time playing it to see if what many echoed about the game was true, that you couldn't actually progress very far without making any kind of purchases in order to defend. So I did spend some time playing without spending a single dollar, and that did mean that I even turned down offers from some people who offered to actually buy the packs for me. I'm sure that probably seems kind of crazy, but yes, I did turn down those offers. But it was all in the name of research. If you are interested in the more finer details of my experience in World War Rising, you can always check out my Twitter account. I did document some of those experiences there. My Twitter is @LuckyPoyo. I concluded that it was nearly impossible to get the mercenaries necessary to form a proper defense against players who didn't even know how to put together an attack that made sense, as long as they spent at least $100 in USD or so. Some events were also strictly for paid players, even if you could spend hours upon hours, just grinding away like a happy farmer. According to ClassAction.org, a class action lawsuit was filed against Epic Action LLC, the company holding Final Fantasy XV: A New Empire mobile game, and Machine Zone Inc. itself. The law cited were the California Unfair Competition Law and California Consumers Legal Remedies Act. The reason for the lawsuit was due to false advertisement and shady marketing tactics. One of the examples cited was regarding an in-game advertisement for the Citadel building, which had a steep asking price of $99.99, which fails to deliver the advertised upgrade. The plaintiff stated, quote, "In reality, purchasing this upgrade pack does not result in a Citadel upgrade at all. The listed items underneath the large lettering are only part of what is needed to upgrade. To discover what is actually needed to upgrade, users must exit out of the advertisement, enter their university building within their empire, and research the dozens of resources needed to upgrade. Doing that research is near impossible given that the advertisement contains a live countdown clock, usually only a few minutes in length, pressuring the player to make the purchase quickly and without exiting out of the ad. Nothing in the advertisement discloses to the players what is actually needed to upgrade, nor is there any link contained in the advertisement that allows the player to go directly to that information. Instead, players are led to believe that the items listed, if purchased, will allow them to upgrade their Citadel, which is patently false." On November 23rd, 2021, the case was updated, stating that an agreement had been reached on January 20th of 2021 between the plaintiff and defendant, and that the case would voluntarily be dismissed. Interestingly, the terms of the agreement were not disclosed. MZ announced a new game in late 2017, unlike any they had created prior. It didn't seem to be the same kind of reskin game formula that the company had been using. On May 14th, 2019, the game was pushed into open beta in the United States. It wasn't until February 18th, 2020, however, that the game would officially launch on both Android and iOS. Exactly 1 year after the open beta launched for Crystalborn on May 14th, 2020, AppLovin announced that they had acquired Machine Zone for a reported $500 million, far below their historical peak valuation. I personally found the timing to be interesting, especially paired with the low price point compared to what MZ had previously been worth. Even more curious, AppLovin even states on their website that they would actually be moving into MZ's headquarters in Palo Alto, apparently a mile away, to share their headquarters. So, just a random kind of interesting fact about that. With that said, during this time, it became apparent to new Crystalborn players that the game was, in fact, different from MZ's previous titles. However, whether it was due to the stark lack of new content, the gacha mechanics, or just plain poor marketing, the game was an utter commercial failure. November 2nd, 2020, an in-game announcement was released, stating, quote, "We regret to announce that Crystalborn Heroes of Fate will be shutting down on January 4th, 2021. Starting today, there will be no more in-app purchases, and the app will no longer be discoverable on the App Store." Please read the news blog for additional details. In the blog, the developers further elaborated that they would be sending thank you gifts to all players, with VIP players receiving scaled gifts based on their VIP level. True to their word, if you search for the game on any app store, you will not find it. The game is still listed today on mz.com, but not on their games page, only their homepage. Since the failure of Crystalborn and the buyout of MZ by AppLovin, players over time grew restless. At the end of my time actively observing the Line app communities and engaging with the game, I witnessed a mass exodus happen. In November of 2021, a few servers sent a message to MZ literally and figuratively by relocating their bases to the northwestern corner of the server and sending a message to support protesting the recent, quote, blatant pay-to-play releases, and citing the lack of information on a game-breaking boost being available prior to release, which caused many players who weren't on when the boost was initially sold to lose, in some cases, thousands of real dollars worth of in-game assets. As the support team continued to send back what players called copy-paste replies day after day, without players' feelings like actually being understood and players feeling like they weren't heard. Another major release that was a clear cash grab put enough players off to leave to other games or quit altogether. Regardless of the MZ game in question, I've seen the same sentiments over and over. Players leaving because of how little regard the company seems to pay players who will spend thousands of their hard-earned money on the game that they play. In recent days, the World War Rising scene has shown me that some players are returning to the game since the developers did start to clean up the November mess that happened. But the game is still far from repaired. Only time will tell at this point if the game will be revived or become a faint memory, just like Crystalborn. With the other players in the other 3 remaining games echoing the same sentiment, only time will tell where MZ will go next. But that being said, I want to know your guys' thoughts. Tell me in the comments below, do you think that MZ actually understands what is going on, or do you think that ultimately their newest game, World War Rising, is going to get shut down? Or maybe even possibly that the other games might as well. I mean, I know they got bought out by AppLovin, but I've heard some interesting news, if you will, about AppLovin not having the best sales lately. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. And be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. I will be posting once a week. And my next video that I would like to do will be covering a mobile game. Not just, you know, a mobile game company. Thank you!